Hey everybody, it's great to be back in the studio. We had the 4th of July holiday over the weekend and it's not really feeling like a great time to be proud about being an American or living in the United States. And it's only getting worse as restrictions on where Americans are allowed to go around the world continue to grow. We talked, listen, I said months ago that it's likely that as other countries get coronavirus under control and we don't because of our failed, incompetent leadership, we will not be allowed to participate in the travel that is now becoming commonplace in other parts of the world. And case in point, the United States is included in a list of countries from which people cannot travel to Europe, despite Europe being widely reopened. Spoke to friends in France and Belgium over the weekend, and, they're taking precautions, masks on public transit, but restaurants are open, things are happening, people are traveling between European countries. Americans not allowed to go there. It's getting even worse. Now, the Mexican state of Sonora has closed the border to the United States. Specifically, their border is with the state of Arizona ahead of the July 4th weekend. The governor of Sonora saying that American travelers are not going to be allowed to come in. There's too much of a risk with coronavirus being rampant in Arizona and in the United States. They don't want Americans on Sonoran beaches. July 4th is a peak tourism time for Americans going over there. Now, before we go even further, is anybody else a little bit confused about going to another country to celebrate our Independence Day? I mean, I guess conceptually, if you just think about it as time off, then you go wherever. There's no rule that says you have to stay in the United States. But it is interesting that in a state like Arizona, which is not a particularly progressive state, there would be so much desire on our Independence Day to leave the country and to go to Mexico. I guess if you're under 21, it makes more sense because you can drink in Mexico and not in the United States legally anyway. But there's something about that that's maybe a little bit counterintuitive. But in any case, Americans not allowed to cross the border from Arizona into Sonora. A reopening date has not yet been announced, and it's just too dangerous. Americans are a danger to Mexico. Mexico having its own fair share of troubles controlling coronavirus, but Arizona, one of the global hotspots at this point, never mind one of the American hotspots. The growth rate of cases in Arizona, one of the largest in the world. And it does seem, I mean, listen, I understand why they're doing it. I don't like that we can't travel to Europe. I had a trip to Europe planned in June. Obviously, it was canceled. I was hoping that I could reschedule it to August. I haven't, and it doesn't look like that's going to be even remotely safe, so I'm not going to do it. So from a personal perspective, I don't like it. But you have to imagine that a lot of the people going from Arizona to Mexico for the 4th of July during a pandemic are not going to be what we would call our best, to borrow a term from Donald Trump. It's probably the anti-maskers, maybe anti-vaxxers as well, conspiracy theorists, the so-called liberty people, maybe birthers, truthers of different persuasions, Trumpists and gun people, QAnons, and of course, because of the virus, probably some COVID people as well, because who else would really be doing unnecessary foreign travel right now? As Dr. Anthony Fauci recently said, he would only get onto an airplane in an emergency right now. So the numbers in Arizona are horrifying. 98,000 total cases. Probably by the end of today, Arizona will be at 100,000 total cases, approaching 2,000 deaths. Very fast growth rate. Peak death number so far in Arizona was just a few days ago. July 1st is the day on which Arizona has had the most single day deaths. And looking at case numbers, it would not be shocking that they best that in the next few days. Sonora in Mexico, the state of Sonora, their hospitals are filling up. Their testing capacity is limited. They can't afford a spike. So they're saying, sorry, Americans, you can't come here. So parts of Mexico are now closed to Americans. The Canadian border is closed except for essential travel with mandatory quarantine. Can't fly to Europe. They wanted nationalism. We're sort of weirdly getting this isolationist nationalism, not exactly by our choice, but happening as a result of other countries instituting limitations on Americans. The optimistic, hopeful scenario right now, I don't want to blow smoke anywhere, up, down, wherever it is, you don't want smoke blown. I don't want to blow it. But the optimistic scenario right now is Biden defeats Trump. When he takes over in January, we likely still have a huge mess. Hopefully by then there's an early vaccine, there's initial vaccine access. By January, I think optimistic would be healthcare workers and some of the most vulnerable. And it will still probably be 6 months beyond that of Biden focusing heavily on coronavirus to really get things under control economically and medically. We're going to talk about the economic component in a little bit. And of course, a lot of this will depend on Republican obstruction, which is why taking control of the Senate in November, in addition to removing Donald Trump, is so clearly important. And because we're here for the full week this week, no days off this week, later this week, I'm going to revisit the topic of the Senate, which I think is a really important one.